The night air above the Santiago Bernabeu felt electric before the first whistle, a hum that tightened into a roar the moment the new boy stepped onto the grass. Cheers rose and then folded into something sharper, a repeated name that caught and ricocheted through the stands. Franco, Franco, Franco. For those who watched the clip an hour later on their phones, the sound arrived loaded, an echo from a darker chapter of history. But in the moment, under the floodlights and among the scarves and flags, the chant had a simpler, more urgent origin. It was the surname of the debutant who had just worn the white shirt for the first time, Mastantuono Franco, an Argentine teenager whose first touches were felt like promise. The sequence of his minutes was petite but electric. A quick flick here, a fearless run there. A pass that suggested more than a training ground technique. Enough to make tens of thousands of people in the stadium believe they had glimpsed a future staple of their club. That belief spilled out as a chant, clean and immediate. A name repeated until it became a drumbeat. But the chant did not remain a private stadium moment. Within minutes, snippets were streaming across social platforms, slowed and replayed, framed by commentators who read context into the cadence of a crowd. What had been spontaneous adoration in white seats was reframed on timelines as a political provocation. Old ghosts summoned by a single word. Headlines arrived fast, and with them a second performance. Pundits and rival outlets tore the moment apart, asking questions not about the player's touch, but about intention, memory, and the responsibility of public spaces. In that hour, the debutant's minutes were eclipsed by a debate that was as much about media framing as it was about motive. Some shows ran polls. Should he be called Franco or Mastantuono? Turning a surname into a national talking point. In other corners, journalists and fans pushed back, insisting the chant was a spontaneous celebration of a promising signing, not a toast to a past regime. That clash exposed familiar fault lines. Sports as a battlefield for identity, the speed at which social media can weaponize an image, and the ease with which rivalry stokes outrage. Certain outlets, eager for a controversy to latch onto, amplified the worst interpretation. Others, including voices close to the club, tried to tame the narrative by showing footage of the player's debut, his nervous smile, the way teammates capped him on, the gentle cradle of applause after a clean pass. Meanwhile, in cities where rival clubs hold court, the moment was wielded as proof of a double standard. What counts as scandal for one city's fans is shrugged off in another, and that discrepancy fed the flames. Through all this, Mastantuono himself remained an unlikely axis, a teenager with the weight of a name and the sudden heat of expectation on his back. He was both subject and object, cheered into a spotlight that then blinded him with scrutiny. The more interesting story, however, is not the shouting itself, but what the shouting revealed. It revealed how a modern crowd processes spectacle, how a few seconds can become a symbol, how affection can be read as provocation, and how a club's new face can become a cultural amplifier. For Madrid fans, the chant was a shorthand for immediate affection, a fast, imperfect way to claim a new idol. For critics, it was an opportunity to question the tone of public celebration in a nation with a fraught past. For the player, it was both a coronation and a trial by media. Every promising touch now travels through a filter that asks not just whether he is talented, but what his name signifies. In the locker rooms and on pundit panels, people will pass intent, scroll through archives, compare incidents, and ask what responsibility institutions have when a stadium sings in unison. Yet despite the noise, the clearest truth remains on the pitch. A young player made a first impression that thrilled thousands. Whether that impression becomes legend or a footnote depends on the next matches, the next decisions, and the way clubs and media choose to tell the story. For now, the chant echoes, part celebration, part misunderstanding, part prompt for conversation. And Mastantuono Franco stands at its centre, an unexpected lens through which a footballing debut became a story about memory, media, and the strange. Persistent power of a name.